Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and this is going to be a unique type of video. Basically, you might say it's a video about my videos, more specifically about my videos of museums. And what I've done is I have created a list of the top 20 best museums, in my opinion of course, from all the museums I've been to all around the world so far, since I've been doing my YouTube channel. And I'm doing it now because I have just completed my top 20 list. The last museum I went to was the 20th, so now I'm ready to present this to you. So I'm going to show you my list, give you some factors about it, and then go over each one of the listings. And the purpose of doing this video is to help you in your travels, maybe when you're going to museums, and sometimes, probably most of the time, museums can be very disappointing. So I'm giving you my top 20 list of what I think are the best museums, at least for the ones that I've seen. And this list will vary in the future. When I come upon a new museum in the future that I want to add to my list, I'll have to do one of two things. I'll either have to take one off my least favorite of my favorite so that I can keep it as the top 20, or probably most likely I'll let it go to the top 25. We'll see how that goes. And I've uploaded this list to Google Docs, and I've put a link in the description below this video that you can just click on to go and see the list and download it. So let me show you the list now, and then I'll explain some things. So here it is, my top 20 list. There's the name of the museums, the city and state, and this column is the website for each one of the museums. You don't need to show you that now. If you go to the Google Docs, you get the list, and that will detail the websites for each one. Now, I don't have them rated number 1 best, number 2, number 3. However, I do have 5 that I'm considering in the top 5, the ones that are in bold. Discovery Park of America, Miracle of America Museum, Museum of Egyptian Antiquities, Pioneer Auto Show Museum, and Tallahassee Automobile Museum. Those, I think, are the 5 best of the 20. Otherwise, you can see they're just in alphabetical order. So now let me go over each one. Number 1, the Buckhorn Saloon and Museum in San Antonio. It's really 4 things. It actually is a saloon that serves alcoholic beverages. It also has a cafe where you can have a meal, and then it has the Buckhorn Museum, and then it also has a certain room that is the Texas Ranger Museum, but that's kind of a minor factor. So the Buckhorns are horns of all sorts of horned animals. Some of them are really huge, like the Texas Longhorn bulls, and then the horns of small animals. They have really an amazing collection of actual horns and the taxidermied heads of all sorts of horned animals. Really nice museum. Next one, the City Museum in St. Louis. That's a very unusual museum. It's practically a amusement park for children mostly, although some of the things they have do for attractive for adults like myself. It's very varied in what they have, but it's such a unique type of museum, and it's a very non-traditional museum. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to see it. If you go to St. Louis, you definitely want to see that. Next, the Cloud Museum in Bard, California. And Bard, California is really just very close to Yuma, Arizona. And it has a large collection of antique automobiles. However, they're not restored. They do not have these very finely restored automobiles. They really are in their original state, pretty much. But that's just one part of it. There are just quite a wide variety of things that they have to show you. All kinds of machinery and equipment. It is quite varied, and it's very much in the original state of pretty much everything that they have. And it is a huge property with a lot of different things. Some of it is like an old west town. If you're ever in the Yuma area, you definitely want to see that. Next is the Discovery Park of America, Union City, Tennessee. And I'm calling that the most diverse museum that I have seen anywhere. It covers so many different topics, and not one is any more overwhelming than the other. It is just quite amazing. And it's a very huge property in a very small town. Look up where Union City, Tennessee is on the map, and definitely put that on your bucket list that you want to see. It's got so many different things, it's just hard to describe. Now, next is the Daughtry Museum in Longmont, Colorado. And that museum is mostly farm equipment, actually. But they have a lot of other things too. They have a room full of player pianos and other types of instruments that are automatic player machines. They have a lot of other things. It's a very huge building. They've got quite an amazing collection of not just farm equipment, but all sorts of things. So if you're in that area above Denver, then check out the Daughtry Museum. Next is the Erotic Heritage Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. And like most of Nevada, it's adult oriented. That museum has been there for a really long time. I've been to it 3 times over the last 20 years or so. They keep changing it and improving it. And the last time I was there, about a year ago, they said that they are kind of getting away from a lot of the pornography type exhibits and getting more into the art pieces, sexually related art pieces, which they do have a lot of. So if you're in Las Vegas, you're looking for something a little extra to do, and you like this kind of thing, definitely go to that. Next is Jack Sizemore Traveland RV Museum, Amarillo, Texas. Now there also is an RV museum in Elkhart, Indiana, which is what they call the world capital of RVs. And that one is good too, but this one in Amarillo, I'm calling a lot better than the one in Elkhart. They have their display set up better, I think, and they also have a lot of motorcycles, antique bicycles. They've got a classic soda shop, and there's a lot of things there other than just RVs. And I do think their RV collection is a little more interesting than the one that is much more well known in Elkhart. Next is the Luna County Historical Museum, Deming, New Mexico. Usually historical museums are not that exciting. This one is the best historical museum I've seen anywhere. Their displays are a lot more varied and put together very well. They've got some really amazing things there. They've got different rooms and sections for certain types of historical things. So as far as historical museums goes, that's top of my list. Next, Miracle of America Museum, Polson, Montana. That is a really huge property. with a very varied collection, again, of all sorts of things related to the United States of America. Next is the Museum of Clean in Pocatello, Idaho, where I was just there a few days ago. And it is, believe it or not, a museum about the cleaning business. Now, that doesn't sound very exciting, but once you see it, I think you'll find that it is a pretty exciting museum. They've got things like the world's very first vacuum cleaner, the world's first powered vacuum cleaner, and they have got an amazing collection of cleaning equipment and products and displays on all sorts of topics, everything from cleaning your carpet to cleaning your teeth. It's a huge museum, 4 floors of displays, and even though it doesn't sound that exciting, I'm telling you, you go in and you see it, and I think you will agree that it is. And it has a lot of products on display that are from the 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of it is memorabilia of those kinds of things. I was certainly so impressed with it, I had to put it on my list. Now, next is the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities in Cairo, Egypt. Now, that, I think, any museum association or organization or appreciation of museum organizations would consider that one of the iconic museums around the world. If they have a top 20 list of their best museums, and I'm talking high-class museums, I think the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities would definitely be on their list as well. It has a lot of mummies, a lot of caskets of the kings and pharaohs, and a lot of statues of pharaohs and all sorts of people that were significant in those days. It is a very varied museum, although it's all about Egypt, Egyptians, ancient Egypt. It's really a spectacular collection. And if you ever go to Cairo and you take any kind of a tour with some tour company, they're going to take you to that museum. You're really going to love it. Next is the Music House Museum, Traverse City, Michigan. Now, that is a museum specialized in self-playing musical instruments. And they have numerous self-playing musical instruments, and it's completely a guided tour. And the guy that goes with you, he turns them on, plays some of the musical instruments. They've got, I think, the world's largest self-playing pipe organ. So as the guide goes through, he plays certain ones and tells you all about it. If you like that kind of thing, you're going to be really happy with going to that museum. Next is the National Museum of Funeral History in Houston. That may seem to be a really strange one to be on the list, but I found it very interesting. They have a lot of different type of hearses, and especially ones that were used in presidential funerals and funerals of famous people, celebrities. I found it to be a highly interesting museum, enough so to put it on my list of the top 20. Next is the Noah Purifoy Outdoor Desert Art Museum of Assemblage Sculpture. How do you like that name? In Joshua Tree, California. And Noah Purifoy is a sculpture artist, and he creates his sculptures not as typical statues, but he makes them out of all sorts of different products. I mean, he can take all the parts of some washing machines and turn it into a piece of art. he can take just about anything and make art out of it, and he has all of these pieces, and it is really in the desert. It's an outdoor museum, and it is right in the middle of a big desert just north of the Joshua Tree National Park. It's kind of hard to get to, but it is an amazing collection of artwork. So if you're ever in that area, Southern California, I definitely recommend you go there. And the Pioneer Auto Show Museum in Murdo, South Dakota. Now, that is part automobile museum and part of a old western town type museum with buildings from the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. So it's not just an automobile museum, although they have, I don't know, a couple hundred cars at least in their museum, and it has a lot of other things as well. So it is much, much more than a car museum. It does have a lot of things unrelated to cars, and that's kind of what makes it so special. So if you're ever going through South Dakota, definitely stop by there. It's right off of the interstate highway going east-west. And then the Remington Carriage Museum in Cardston, Alberta, Canada. That is maybe the only carriage museum anywhere. And these are all horse-drawn carriages. There's no motorized carriages. They specialize in those horse-drawn carriages, and they also have a workshop there where people bring in all sorts of carriages and wagons and things that they want restored. And the people there at the museum, they have specialists there who will restore any type of carriage or wagons, anything like that that you want to bring in. So you can see some that are in the process of being restored. It's a unique and quite an amazing museum. Now, the Tallahassee Automobile Museum in Tallahassee, Florida, they should really change the name of that because it is so much more than an automobile museum. They have got a collection of things there that you would never guess would be in an automobile museum. For example, they have got a very extensive collection of pocket knives. And there are all sorts of different things that they have our own section in the museum that is an amazing collection of things that are not even the slightest bit related to automobiles. So that by far is the best automobile museum in the world because it's not only about automobiles, it's about a lot of other things that you'll find interesting. Now, the Valley Relics Museum, this is in the San Fernando Valley of California, that is just northwest of the city of Los Angeles. And it has a lot of neon signs, all sorts of signs of businesses that have gone out of business, that were very popular in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you go to that museum, and especially if you've ever lived in Southern California, that is going to bring back a lot of memories of past decades of businesses in Southern California that have some really impressive and outstanding signage, and it has some other related collections as well. Excellent museum. And then the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I would like that to be in my top 5 list. If I expanded it to 6, it'd be in my top 6 list. They have a huge property there, and it's all about the development of the West, the Western North America. And it's mostly very large displays of things. They've recreated a city, basically, and explained how all these businesses developed in the Western North America it's a very impressive museum. Then finally, World Erotic Museum in Miami Beach, Florida. That's kind of similar to the one in Las Vegas, except that it is pretty much just art related, erotic art, as is in its name. And it has some other exciting things to it as well, because it's not just the beauty of art, but there's a lot of humorous things and a lot of, you might say, kind of kinky things that they've made art out of. Even though it's specifically sex related, I think that any adults would really enjoy going to see that, unless you're really conservative or Puritan about what you like in art. If that's you, then you wouldn't like it, but I would say the average adult would really enjoy seeing that museum if they like sex and they like art as well. So that's my list, and I will be changing it from time to time, and when I do make any changes to it, I will upload an updated version to Google Docs. So whenever you're going on a trip, mostly in North America, but maybe even in other countries, then check my list of the top 20 museums, and maybe you'll be going somewhere where one of those on the list will be in your agenda. So I hope this will help you in your travels in finding things to do and see. Good day, folks.